Board of Health met last night. I don't see any changes. Oh, good morning, everybody. This is Frank Messina. Welcome to the December 7, 2021 Day of Infamy of the Chatham Historical Commission. We have a couple of announcements before we begin. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please let the chairman be notified. Seeing none. The meeting of the Chatham Historical Commission is being conducted in person via remote participation in accordance with Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 and shall afford adequate alternate means of public access via Microsoft Teams by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 655-718-05#, or by joining the meeting via Microsoft Teams online on the link posted on the agenda. Despite our best efforts, we will not be able to provide for real-time access, and we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible in accordance with town policy. Any public member can speak on any issue and hearing or business item on the agenda when recognized by the chair. Okay. Our first order of business is a roll call to see who's here. Bob Lear.
Here.
Steve Burlingame.
Here.
Ben Solozinski.
Present.
Stephanie Hamilton.
Here.
Jane Moffett. Jane is not here, supposed to call in, so I guess we'll find out.
Michelle's
Right now,
calling
she's
her right
absent. Don Aikman.
Here.
Sandy Porter is absent. And Janet Tennyson.
Here.
Okay, Janet, because Sandy's not here, you would fill in as a regular member, a voting member in Sandy's absence. Okay? Okay, let me just do a little bookkeeping here. All right. We have one hearing on today's agenda, and we have a number of items on old business and other things to attend to. There's one item which was not on the agenda, which I just realized, the CPC status. We should talk to that, I should give a quick report, the funding status, and then we'll talk about where we are with the CPC applications. Other than that, that's pretty much the agenda. Why don't we get into the minutes? We have the minutes of November 2nd, 2021.
I move that we accept the minutes of November 2nd, 2021.
Second, please.
Second.
Second by Janet. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Roll call. Mr. Lear?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much.
Hello?
Hello, Jane. Where are you?
This is Jane Moffett. I'm trying to join the meeting.
Okay, well, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, my picture is on there, but it says if you're the organizer or the invite, came
What?
from your work or school, please sign in.
Well, you're signed in, so
So-
you're okay, Jane.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
All right, we just did the roll call and the minutes, so I guess the minutes will acknowledge that Jane is here and
Yes,
can continue to
and I
vote.
vote to accept them.
All right, thank you very much, Jane. All right,
Okay, thanks.
you're welcome. We're going to proceed. Let me get my stuff in order. So the first application we have, a hearing, is application 21025, to be heard in accordance with Chapter 158, the demolition delay bylaw, which is a partial demolition of 137 Kelly Lane by Prestige Homes. What else do we need to know about that?
West
Okay, at
Chatham.
I'm sorry, Jane?
Of West Chatham.
I'm not understanding.
West Chatham. Prestige Homes of West Chatham.
Yes, thank you, Jane. Okay, all right, let's proceed. what do we have on this application? We had a site visit. I know some members couldn't get there during the site visit, and I believe they did make independent drive-bys, which we appreciate. So this home does have a 40B, excuse me, a Form B, that's close. And why don't you introduce yourself briefly?
Good morning, Bill Riley on behalf of Prestige Homes. With me is Kristen Donahue, who is one of the owners of the property.
Okay, that's Kristen? Yes. Thank you. Okay, just quickly, Bill, as you're aware, we probably could dispose of the issue of historical significance unless, you want to speak to that item first?
No, we believe that the structure is historically significant, and that's why Kristen and her family want to preserve the beautiful antique while putting additions on that make it livable for a modern family.
Okay. Basically, if you couldn't hear that, Jane, Mr. Riley is indicating yes.
No, I heard all of it.
Okay, well, Jane, you have to just not speak out. Just raise your hand, and we'll let you know when you want to talk,
I'll be-
okay? All right?
I don't know how to do that on the phone.
Well, good question.
I didn't have anything to say. I heard them all.
All right, I thought we heard
I
you.
heard everything and I drove by and
Thank you,
so
Jane.
I don't know what to do. Maybe Reed could call Michelle back or something. I don't know what to do.
Jane, we can proceed with you on the phone. That'll be fine. We'll deal with it.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
And I'll try
Okay.
to remember to recognize you. All right, Jane, thank you.
Okay.
All right, where was I? Okay.
Well, with due respect to the commission, Kristen would like to do a presentation explaining the family's plans to
Okay,
preserve the real antique portion of the property and the additions their family wants to put on it.
Before we do that, Bill, I want to dispose of the issue of historical
Okay,
significance.
certainly.
All right, so any other comments or question relative to the house on relative to its historic significance? Steph?
May I make a motion?
Absolutely, please.
I make a motion that the house at 137 Kelly Lane, West Chatham, is historical.
Well, let Mr. Lear give you a little hint there, okay, Bob? Steph? Could you,
I would add to Stephanie's motion, it's historically significant because it is in part 75 years old or more, and it possesses architectural value or significance in terms of period, style, and method of construction.
that's what you were going to say, right, Steph? Okay, good.
I'll second that.
Second by Don. Okay, any other comments or questions? Nope, we'll do a roll call.
I have a question. If, are we talking about turn it on, I'm sorry.
Lower your mask for a second if you don't mind, just as
You
you
want me
get,
to lower my mask?
just lower it, you don't have to take it off.
All right. Why- Not this kind, you can't. We're talking about only a small portion of this because I did not go to the site visit. However, it shows that a super large portion of this house is going to be torn down. So we're talking about the historical significance of only a small portion of the house?
No, that's not the way we play that game. When we have a structure that we determine is historically significant, in this case, there's a couple of elements within this structure which are older and some not as old, and, which are, quite honestly, the dating is not too clear. So, but I think we are agreeing, that at least the two sections of the house, have aged more than 75 years. There's other portions of the house which are probably not 75, and I think they're going to make that case, but that doesn't preclude us from indicating that we consider the property to be historically significant. If we start cutting things in half, Ben, and saying, well, that's historically significant, we're not going to get anywhere. We're going to be wrapped around the axles. That's not the way we've been doing it for the 20-some years I've been around here. Am I correct, Don? You're correct. All right?
Okay.
Okay.
Stand corrected.
All right, so if no other comments, we're going to do a roll call relative to historical significance. Mr. Lear?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes,
Thank you. Don?
Yes.
And Janet?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. Sorry about that. I wanted to
No,
just get
that's
that
quite all right.
out of the way, move
We-
along.
I got distracted by the comments from Jane, so I
All right.
apologize. In any event, so I'd like to introduce Kristen Donahue, who is a family member and an owner of the property. She's put together a PowerPoint presentation dealing with the removal of the sections, but the preservation of the three-quarter cape that faces to the south. Go ahead, Kristen.
May I
Please.
take my mask down a little, please?
Oh, sure, please.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. I am here representing Prestige Homes, who is my dad, Ralph Nixon, and we have lived in this neighborhood for, over 30, 40 years now. Like, we bought a property on Pondview Lane when I was 13, and that's where I grew up. And my sister now resides across the street at 140 Kelly. And when we saw that this piece of property was on the market or was potentially going on the market, perfect. No worries. We've always admired the lot. Can I turn the pages up here, or do you have to do that, Michelle? Okay, if you could turn to the first slide, please. The lot was this larger lot with the two little sheds to the right, and that's the house as it exists today. It's just such a quintessential Cape Cod lot with that beautiful three-quarter little cape with the 1975 addition that sticks way out along the back. And, not only to preserve our old neighborhood, but to also create a family compound for myself next door to my sister and for my parents. And our neighbors, I think, are happy that we've bought the property, and we like to build two small homes rather than somebody coming in and leveling the whole thing and putting up some monstrosity. As you can see, the size of the lot was over, I think, 1.5 acres, if not close to 2 acres. So something quite large could have gone there. So we have purchased the property and worked with Thad, and we've split the lots. So now the antique cape sits on the front lot still. And in that drawing, the end where Thad had drawn, that is the end that's to be removed permanently that we're proposing, so that the footprint becomes more compact and more livable by putting a smaller second floor above that 1975 addition. The next slide is just a bigger version of the plot plan. So you can see the piece on the end that we will no longer have, and that's part of the 1975 edition. And then if you go to the next slide is where you kind of get into the historical significance of the house. The true three-quarter cape is that 700 square foot box. She's 28 and a little more by 25. And then the 1975 edition was that 1,200 square foot arm that sticks out from that back side. And the piece in the middle is sort of, I don't know if it was built to join the two parts. The building itself, if you look at the historic Form B, the property was owned in 1955 by the Smith family, and there was no record of a house on the lot at that time. And when the Smith family sold it to the Kisperts, who we purchased the lots from, the Kisperts, there was a note of a house on the lot at that time. So either the house was built between 1955 and 1958, or it was moved there. So we suspect that, obviously, that little 700 square foot piece was definitely moved there. I mean, you can look inside and you can tell by the flooring and the construction. That interim piece where the 1950s kitchen now sits, who knows? I mean, like we said, we have no idea how old either of those pieces are, but we are proposing that we take down definitely the 1975's edition, and then there's reference to the 1975 edition also in the Form B. And I think there's also a record of it with the building department. And we'd also like to take down that smaller 286 square foot piece, but keep that wall exactly where it is and the size of the building at 22 feet. So if you look at the floor plan of what we're proposing to do, we'd like to extend the house back to, I don't know if you can hear me, about here, but keeping this 22
Kristen, you have to stay at the microphone.
back. So, so if you go to the next slide.
Can I ask a question? Mm-hmm. Just go back a second. So, go back a second. Sorry. Thank you. We're going to have to get you a bell. You're going to break that window. Anyway, thank you. Sorry. A quick question. And what you're saying, and I'm going to look at more in the drawing, the 86 square feet, which is probably more than 75 years, but I grant you that, at least from what I was looking at it, and it's my opinion. But you're proposing to remove that, but you're saying the addition that you're going to put on will go back exactly at the same portion
Yes, the front door literally is going to stay right where that door is, but we're going to center it. So the
All right.
door right now is a right-sided door with a window to the left, which you can see on the next picture. But we'd like to put the door in the middle and then add a small carriage house looking like one-car garage so that we could put a car underneath. We don't want anything to overshadow the 21.5-foot peak of the three-quarter cape. So everything sort of cascades to the left of that, but keeps that same angle, same pitch for the three peaks that go to the left of it.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you very much.
So for those it sounds like everybody got to see the site. So if we want to go to the next slide, that is what it looks like today. And we did have Michelle Cadillo from Cadillo Engineering come out and look at it. And, obviously, as I think Janet mentioned yesterday, when you start pulling apart the walls and looking at what's underneath, there is a lot of rot, and we have to replace some sills. We have to do some putting in some more structure underneath the three-quarter cape to shore it up. The floorboards are pretty uneven and will be for the rest of their lives. But that little piece on the end is more of a mess than the bigger one. And we'd like to just replace it with new construction, but take all of those beams in there and use them decrementally as additives to the newer structure, so that we take all of the beams of the roof and the sideboards and use them within the new structure of the house to sort of tie the two pieces together. So even though this is the side facing the street, the Smiths, if you go to the next slide, really put the front towards Oyster Pond. So you don't really ever see the front of the house unless you're on the property. I mean, the neighbors don't see the front of the house because their backs and there's trees are facing us. So kind of unfortunately, it's sitting where it's sitting, and we did toy with picking it up and moving it to face the street, but that would just be another expense, and I worry about the integrity of the structure if we did that, and it's sitting this way. So I think it should stay that way. And so, like I said, to the right, that's the whole 1975 addition for those two little windows all the way over to that bay window, and that's what we'd like to remove along with the adjoining L.
Can I ask a question? Mm-hmm. Do you I know you're going to check the foundation. Is there a foundation? Is there a basement underneath the current historic portion?
They
of
are
the house?
all crawl spaces.
So crawl spaces? And,
Yep.
And so are you going to be lifting it or just
No,
reinforcing
we've
it?
talked about that, and Michelle thinks that we can just put in a vapor layer, and if we need to, maybe put a pour, like just to keep, but it's held itself so well with the dirt underneath. I think it might be better to keep the dirt, to keep the house. I mean, I lived in a 1930s colonial, was my first house in Wellesley, and I have to say, like, it worked, and we didn't want to touch it, so
Thank you.
I think we're just going to leave it. And then the next slide is the elevation that faces the back side, the right side of the house. As you can see, that 28-foot plus back to that second window, that's exactly where we want to keep it sort of on its own, so it sits out in front of the addition. And then this whole little section on the end won't even be there because the house will not extend. It's like a railroad car, and when you get in there, there's one long hallway that extends down to that little bedroom. So that will no longer be there. And then the back side of the house, on the next slide, please, You can see a lot better now because there was a whole lot of invasive bushes and grapevine between us and 125 that we plan to plant again back onto that hill towards our neighbor, Mrs. Salas. And then there's the little door to the back side of the house. And again, we're going to keep that door pretty close to where it is today. I think it slides to the left a little bit, but if the one-car garage sits, it sort of sits to the light post and back, so that you have just a little garage on the end, and then the second story kind of goes from the mid-peak line of that older interim piece back to sort of in between the two windows before you get to the other gabled end. So the second floor isn't very long. It's 36 feet, I believe.
Well,
And
perhaps we could show a picture of that or a drawing of that.
yes, but my point here is that that pitch of that roof of that older structure will still be there, but over the porch, because we want to put the door in a porch so that you still get that feeling of that pitch from the front, even though there is a little garage going in front of it. So the next slide is the drawings. And so what I was just mentioning there is that, see that back door, if you look at the back side of the house facing the picture to the left, the back door is in a similar spot to where it is today. The front of the house keeps the three-quarter cape to itself, don't touch it. And with the front door, instead of to the right, is now centered. And then we've added this little garage, carriage house garage to the side. And everything slopes down from the peak of the three-quarter cape. So the three-quarter cape's 21 and a half feet. The second story of the proposed new construction is 18. The garage is only 14. And then the porch, which is not seen on this but is on your drawings, is 9 foot with a 3-foot railing. And the other pictures, I think, speak better to it because it's a little better shaded. If you go to the next slide, this is the proposed front of the house. So again, this is the front of the house that faces Oyster Pond. That sits alone. The three-quarter cape sits completely in front of the proposed construction. There's a slight bump out in the middle, to the left of the new construction where the kitchen will be. It's an extra 1.5 feet. For the wall and 2.5 feet for the window. The second story is 22 feet wide, or the first story is pretty much 22 feet wide, like the front of that little L in the back of the three-quarter cape. And then if you go to the next slide, that's the side of the house, which faces the street. And again, we've kept the three-quarter cape alone, and we've just repeated the peak 3 times and set the second story back. So the second story's back behind, sort of in the same place where that little L meets the roof of the three-quarter cape. And we just like to center the door and put it in, that's the kind of a crude drawing of the door. It's not going to look that, but there is a farmhouse door on that side right now with 4 panes. And I'd like to keep it exactly the same, but maybe add some side lights because that is the afternoon sun that comes through there and faces this side of the house. But we definitely want to keep the three-quarter cape as the main focus, and everything else sort of sits back from it. And then the next elevation is from the right side of the house as you're looking at it from the pond again. So 22 feet is the width, just like the width of the length of that little L. But the garage does stick out 6 feet more to the right, but it's, very set far forward. And there is a slight bump out for the kitchen window. As you can see, it's labeled 2 feet here. I think the exact measurements is 2.5, and then there's 1.5 for another wall bump out in order for us to fit a working door. But the 28 feet of the side of the cape does exist. You just can't see it here because of that bay window. So the 28 feet does go behind that bay window so that we're not sort of encroaching on the side of the antique cape.
Yeah, so you're maintaining the identity of the antique cape on all sides except the rear.
Yes, yep. Yep. And so we're trying to tie into that as best as we can to keep the cape look and to keep the heights and everything else, like, so that it's more cottagey than it is like as a large home. And to note, if you take to the next slide, I believe is the footprint. Oh, this is the back. So that's another picture of the back of the house that faces 125 Kelly Lane. And a note to the neighbors, this side of the house, the 36 feet and the 12, when you look at the original plans, we've cut 20 feet off the house. And then what we're, that 12 foot is not a second story. So I know that for their view is on this end of the house facing over that to our left here. So I think they'll actually be pleased because we've shortened the size of the house and they have a nice view from their second floor, but they have had none from their first before. So I think they're going to get a nice shot of the pond through this side of the house now that it's not so long. And then the next slide, I believe, shows this is the overlay. And this is a little dark. I think in your packets, it's much lighter. The better quality drawing, but you can see where the proposed overlay is. And to note that line where you see the L come back, the 22 feet, that dark line in front of it is the porch. The wall of the house is actually in the same exact place. So the porch is 5 feet off of that front wall. So the actual structure of the home is where it still stands today.
It's hard to see with these drawings, I'll tell you that. So if you go back to the first, can you go back to this one?
Yep.
All right.
So that door is exactly on the same wall.
Give Mr. Hart some ink and bigger paper. I mean, goodness,
We'll go to the next one. You might be able to see it better on the bigger one.
Oh, yeah,
Or
okay, well,
one more thing, please.
Let me get to my question.
There it is, yeah.
It's a very simple one, I think, and I'm
Yeah.
just, in the way of understanding it. If we look at, go back to that again, sorry. Okay, so when I look at the top, 14 feet, and the carriage house, as you referred to
Mm-hmm.
it, 14 feet, and then the 28 is the
Existing.
three-quarter cape. So that porch there is, it's slanted, I guess? It's not flat, or what is it?
The roof slants,
roof of
yeah.
the
So
porch.
it's similar to the look of the old addition, that it slants up to those second-story windows.
So you're covering the front entrance. It's just not.
Yes.
The only function of that is to cover the front entrance.
And
A
to give it
porch.
that same look of that end with the, because you've had that roof going, that line going that way, I'd like to continue to have that roof line
Got
going
it.
that way.
Thank you. I just was trying to understand.
Yeah. But I just wanted to note that drawing is a little it gives you the impression that we've moved the wall. We have not moved the wall, we've just put a porch on. So the wall where the door sits is in the same place as it is today. So if you go back to that plot plan, it just shows that it's a more compact. We really only changed, I think, in the document, like the coverage by a couple hundred feet.
So you've reduced your footprint, so to
Yeah,
speak, is what you're
coverage has
saying.
been reduced.
Yeah, so the coverage is better and it's more, it's got just a smaller feel. And it gets rid of that ranchy type of feel that you see today that doesn't really look like a cape.
You don't have any zoning issues, do you, Bill?
No.
No, we're way below, yeah.
No,
we've
the only
got
reason we
500
ask
more
that is
feet.
if there's a zoning issue, that means there's another board involved, and then.
Yeah, no,
then-
we're
Then there's a
like-
conversation between the Historical Commission and the zoning
Yeah,
board. I'd just like to know.
We're in the clear by something like 600 or 800 square feet
Thank you.
of coverage. Yeah. And so the next slide was just my horrible drawing of, where it was going to sit originally, but so that was the more official drawing, so you can skip this one. And this is just
Do
a
we
couple.
have that? Go back.
Yeah, it's in your packet, the original packet. That was
Okay.
just showing driveways of where, of egress in and out, and potentially putting in a barn-like structure for a better garage up against the woods between me and the neighbor next door.
Michelle, do you have that? We don't have that.
Oh, you don't? Oh,
So
so
what
then
do-
that was the end of the presentation. So this is just my,
So what do you
my
do?
doodling.
You're talking about potentially putting a barn in the back?
That was a pipe dream, but no, I can't afford that.
What?
I can't afford that.
What? I heard you.
Oh, that guy.
No comment.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, so that was it. So I think that was just all my scribblings at the end of the presentation. It was still in
Okay.
there.
All right. We don't really need it, but, okay. Are you done?
I am.
Very good. Thank you very much. Very comprehensive, and personally, it sounds, you obviously thought about it.
Yeah. Well,
And,
it's a beautiful little gem, and it should stay that way in my mind, so.
Okay, so what we're going to do now, and see if anybody, go around the table, see if anybody's got questions on what we're proposing, and just some thoughts. Steve, I see your hand up. Could you press the button?
I hate to sound very dense, although maybe it's because I am. But from what I understand, the extension, the east-west extension behind the old house, is in fact behind the old house. It does not attach itself to the old house, but attaches itself to what is now an L, an old L
Yes.
transition piece. So on the second floor, where there's a couple of different pitches for a dormer, that dormer comes
Yes.
off the structure that's replacing the old L.
Yep.
Is there access between the two buildings?
There's a closet. So because that second floor is not very large, we set it back from the first floor so that we have some roof lines around the edge. To get 3 bedrooms and a closet with closets, we put a closet in the old structure, so in the roof of the old 3-quarter cape.
No, Steve wanted to know if there was access from the three-quarter cape into the new addition under that.
Yeah, it's the back of
Roof
a
connection.
bedroom, and we have a closet outlined for there, and in the back of the closet, there's more storage. We're not gonna use the second floor of that cape, it's a mess. And it's got a staircase that's straight up and down. So we'd just like to have access from the back of that closet that's through there, but that's it. There's no hallway or
No,
anything like that.
But that area, does it adjoin the three-quarter cape, or does it adjoin the interim
It
structure
adjoins
between the
It's-
two?
the three-quarter cape.
It does adjoin the three-quarter
Yeah,
cape.
the roof of the addition does connect. If you look at this slide, I don't know,
Okay,
you can see that this ridge line
yes,
joins the three-quarter cape here,
yes.
and then they have this dormer-like structure.
Yeah, it's a narrow passage, it's a closet, and then there's a door so that we can get access to more storage without having to haul things up and down those
So
stairs.
the old cape will have a dormer.
That's correct,
Off the back.
yes.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So is there one now?
No.
No,
No. Well, it's,
Sorry, I didn't realize it. Is there one now? Thank you. I feel
No,
like
there
I'm in a
isn't one
movie.
now.
Yeah,
yeah, it's just raised up.
yeah, I didn't catch that. These drawings are so difficult to read.
I don't like. Doesn't show the setbacks from.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve Hart, that's why.
Yeah. It's very narrow, so it's set very far back from the right side of that roof line, so you can't really see it from here, but my guess is that
I
it's
got it.
that dormer's probably 14 feet at least set off the roof. So you're gonna see a great proportion of that roof still coming down the road, and the dormer is way over here, because it's just a closet, it's narrow.
How big is, how
Back
big
of
is
the
that
house is 25 feet wide. So
You know
you're
what-
gonna see a,
You know, it's hard to
50-50
see-
shot
excuse
of
me.
that roof.
You know, Steve, what's hard to see is the size of the dormer of that house.
Yeah, because it's hidden behind the
mean, the
garage.
drawings, you
But
don't-
see the garage, see, like, it's not in front, see where the edge is on the left drawing here, where the little cupola over the garage is? That's the end of the house. So the dormer is gonna be set back from that even, so it's way to the left of the chimney.
You know,
So
the
you're
drawings-
gonna,
The drawings don't show the dimensions, you know, I'm a little bit of a, are you in construction phase yet? Do you have construction drawings?
No.
no. We
This
wanted
is-
to talk to you first.
This is it?
Yeah.
Well, you know, there was,
See, what I'm getting at, Bill, is that, you know, I'm not questioning the whole application per se, is that looking at what we're trying to save here, which is the three-quarter cape, there are some changes to it, okay?
That's correct. Is it-
And what we have here is pictorials relative to what's happening, but I don't see the exact, I mean, we go nuts sometime over the size of dormers, so I don't really know the size of the dormer, okay? I know there's a dormer there, and I can see it, but it's not clear, at least from my perspective, of what that dormer looks like.
yeah, we'll
Because
get-
that dormer
you know,
is gonna be
Frank,
seen
we'll
from the
get you the
street.
information. We don't, unfortunately, Steve Hart's a great guy, but he doesn't put a whole lot of information on his plans.
take umbrage to that remark. If you look at the left drawing over there.
Hold on.
Yeah, you need to
hold
come up
on.
here.
Oh, there. We can recognize you. Come on up.
This is my builder, Ralph Nixon from Prestige Homes, my dad.
Yeah.
I'm going to refer to this drawing. You gotta be-
Ralph,
You have to
Ralph,
stand in front of the mic.
Ralph, excuse me, Mr. Nixon. First, you gotta go stay the thing, introduce yourself, so we know who you are.
I'll be them. Want me to point?
Yeah, I'm Ralph Nixon.
Yeah, and then she could point. I'm sorry, it's difficult, but that's the only way we can go.
That, if you see the chimney on top of the cupola, does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is all.
There is the dormer to the left of that, the straight line vertical coming up and down.
And it's only like this
As
wide.
Kristen said, there's 12 or 14 feet of the roof that shows to the front when you come down the street.
I wish there was a drawing that showed showed from the from aerial view, so I could, because I know there are any number of setbacks between the new building and the old building, et cetera, but they don't show on the drawings.
The setbacks are on that one plot plan.
That,
It should, yes, that one.
He's talking about the structure itself.
but can you reference this drawing for me?
I think that's slide like 9, I think. No, keep going. That one, yep. Yes.
So that, to me, shows that the connection is not to the three-quarter cape, but is to the substitute for the old L.
No, but it's just a footprint, pardon me, it's just a footprint, so you know, you need to see the roof lines to see the connection.
All right, but the connection between the two buildings is really, is not the new structure, I'll call it west to east.
Well, the first, Steve, let me explain. So on the first floor,
Yes,
you know, the 200, you remember the 286 square foot L is going to be removed and replaced.
yep,
And so the actual connection into the building from the main and new addition is going to be through that reconstructed or rebuilt L.
correct.
Right.
That's what my understanding was, as opposed to connecting somehow to the original antique house. It really,
Right, well, there
now
will be,
attaches to the
right,
replacement.
well, there will be a connection to the antique house through the dormer we were just speaking of.
Could you
the
point to
second
me
floor.
where the dormer will be on that structure?
Like, literally like here.
Well, it's right where her fingers are. Kristen, you can't speak up there. So it's right where, so it's on the, it would be on the eastern half of the northern roof exposure.
Okay, look,
And how far will it extend towards the current front door of the old house?
Well, when you say the
No, the
current,
current front door.
well, you talk about the front
Yeah.
door, which front door are you talking about?
That one there, that,
You're not going to see it.
No, because
I-
it's a dormer that does not approach the ridge. If you look
Okay.
on the,
all right,
if you look on this, you can see that the dormer's just on the back half of the
excuse me,
antique.
well, we're going to have to do, you know, it's a little bit of an area of concern, and, you know, it's not, we're not, I don't think there's showstoppers here, but we need to have that clarified, okay? So put the dormer issue aside right now, okay?
Right.
And let's move on, and then I'm going to come back to the dormer issue and somehow finding out how we could clarify that, so just.
I guess the
Steve,
principal question
are you
is,
okay? Anything else?
I have floor plans. but-
nothing else, no, but I still
I
have
understand.
concern of how that all fits.
Okay, fine, I understand. All right,
so
going to go around the room. Sorry, were you going to say something, Bill?
I was going to say, perhaps we could focus on the removal of the 1975 addition and get that out of the way.
Well, I think the issue here, what Steve is bringing up, is concern about what the changes, or at least what the three-quarter cape is going to look like. And I think it's
No,
legitimate,
I
so,
understand that. Right at the moment, I don't think we're able to provide greater clarity.
I'm sorry?
I think, right at the moment, I don't think we're able to provide
I understand,
greater
Bill, and that's why I
clarity.
wanted to move on.
Yeah, so let's move on and get rid of the
Thank you.
75-foot, the
You
old
can-
1975
You can take over his
addition.
chair anytime you
I'll
want.
be happy to.
Thank you very much.
Things should move faster, I know that.
Okay. Moving right along. Thank you very much. Okay. Ben, any comments? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes, I'm going to vote yes on this project for two reasons. It's doesn't overwhelm the antique portion, and since it doesn't overwhelm the antique portion, it will, I think, enhance the way things look, and I'm not worried about how they get into their storage area. I mean, it's up to them. If not, they can just get a storage area in Commerce Park.
All right, Ben.
So that's it. So I have a yes here,
Thank you.
no matter what you decide to do with this other business.
Stephanie? Thank you, Ben.
Yes, I have to admit, I'm very confused, but I think I would go along with Ben with a yes.
Stephanie, do me a favor. When you talk, just lift up your microphone more to your mouth. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Don?
Frank, I'm
Jane,
here.
Jane, I know you're here, Jane. Just hold on. I didn't forget about you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. When you say you're going to take the rafters out of the addition and use them for decorative trimming, that would indicate to me that they are old, and they look like something that you would want to put up as ceiling beams. Exposed beams, which is very typical of historic houses. So is that L that you want to demolish, in fact, old?
It's definitely older than 1955 I mean, I'm not an expert in my estimation, but the first floor was all put 1950s stuff over it. So the first floor, I'm not sure much of it is salvageable, but the rafters in that attic there was a clothesline up there. I mean, an ancient clothesline. I mean, so I think that that room hadn't been touched, whereas everything down below had been kind of updated. So that's the pieces that I'd like to try to keep, because they do look, I mean, I like older things.
Old
I like
beams.
the old beams, so I'd like to try to reuse, and I'd like to recycle as much. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot to recycle on the first floor because of what they've done to it.
I always worry about loss of historic materials, and obviously these are going to be reused, so it's not a game killer for me. But the other question I have is, can you tell us how much of the old Cape roof is going to be lost if you take and put in a dormer? Because you're going to have to take off, obviously, roof boards and roof beams from the old Cape in order to accommodate this dormer that you're planning to put on. I don't need an answer right now.
Sorry, Don, go ahead.
The other comment I have is, if you're looking for a garage, there's one in the old village that's for free.
Oh, seriously?
Seriously. That's all I have, Frank.
Oh, what address?
It's on Silverleaf.
Oh, okay, I run down that road all the time, okay.
I missed that part of it. You're looking for an
A
old barn?
garage, yeah, an old barn.
I can get you an old barn about 1800 at 68 Shell Drive.
Let's go to the Nickerson Family Association.
No, there's two barns. I'm sorry, we're a bit off thing, but that's okay. I'm the chairman, at least time I check. The 68 Shell Drive, which is the Nickerson Sons house, first period colonial. There is a first period colonial barn, which is going to the Nickerson family property. But there's a second barn, which is in pretty good shape, and that potentially might be available, but
Oh, that would
that's
be
just offside. Okay, Don, so
huge.
I got, what Don brought up, the issue of the
The
loss
width
of
of the
historic
dormer.
materials and that dormer, we need to talk about that, but let's
Okay.
proceed. Steve, anything else?
No, I'd support the application,
Yeah.
but I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed in the drawings. From that perspective, as Don pointed out, there's going to be some changes to that roof, clearly of the old house, to the original three-quarter Cape. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't show that well enough so that I can tell you that I like it or don't like it, or my concern or not. Generally, however, you've done a good job with the whole planning of this building. The old house is going to retain its prominence, which I know that you're interested in doing, and you've accomplished that. And I will, in fact, support the application.
Okay, thank you very much. Bob?
I basically agree with what Steve just said. I have a problem with applications that have drawings of what proposed, but not drawings of what exists, and therefore we're trying to compare an apple to an orange, and it therefore requires, as you've done, a great deal of explanation. It was extremely confusing to try to figure out the sizes and the dimensions without that detail on present drawings as a comparison. I do think we need some more detail, though, in terms of the joinder of the addition to the main house, and I think part of that is going to be, Frank's going to have to sign off on some drawings that the building commissioner is able to interpret and be able to say whether or not the drawings or the actual built is in compliance with the drawings.
Right.
And we can't do that off of this.
Thank you.
And actually, I may have to sign off on it, makes it even worse.
Thank you very much. All right, Janet?
Well, I think they've done a good job in trying to preserve the original historic home and make it livable, and yet put a smaller footprint in for the modernization of, but making it look old. So I have no problem with approving this. I would approve this project to go ahead.
Thank you. Jane, last but not least?
Hi, I will say what I usually say, and that is, I am really glad that the owners are planning to save the old Cape, three-quarter Cape, and so we're grateful for that. I think I would vote yes on this, but I'm as concerned as the previous speakers, Don and Stephen and Bob about the loss of historic material and the size of the dormer. I can't quite visualize the roof line, but it's not a showstopper for me. I'm really grateful they're gonna save the old building.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jane. Okay, it's obvious we've got a consensus, to approve the application, but I think, I'm last here on, I do have the problems relative to what I'm signing off on, and we've got to find some way to solve that, Bill. I mean, I asked the question, where are you with the construction drawings? Because obviously, even if the construction drawings are not done, at least we have something better that I could sign off and that the building department can issue a building permit. So the issue here is, what am I approving versus what the building commissioner, when he reviews the drawings, the process, Kristen, is very simple. When
Yep.
I'll sign off drawings, and he takes my drawings against what you're proposing to build, and especially when it relates to the historic elements. And if something is different, then he's going to say, come back to me and say, well, what do you want to do? And we're trying to avoid that. We're trying to keep it simple.
Yep.
That's why, quite honestly, in this whole process, because hopefully this is not the last house you're going to be restoring in Chatham. I mean, I can see there's a future here, all right? So, what we like to do is to see very, very, very specifically what you're proposing, not for the rest of the house. We don't have design review authority for what you're proposing. We can opine about it, and we think you've done a great job. The question is the historic house, and there are a couple of questions, a couple of things which I'd like to see defined. First of all, we need to know specific relative to the dormer that's being proposed, the amount of what we call historic material, the amount of the old roof that's going to be removed to put the dormer in. That's the first issue, and that was where Don was coming from. I'm a chimney guy. I assume the chimney is going to remain in place?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, that's
We're
good.
going to restore it so that it works,
Right.
hopefully.
The foundation, are you going to keep the cinder block, or are you going to do anything different?
I think we were going to keep the block, but we're just going to replace the sills and shore up the floorboards.
Okay, fine. All right, and you answered the question about the foundation and not lifting the house, et cetera. The only other question I have relative to the historic house, and we talked about it briefly at the site visit, the fact that house is rolled, 18-something, old, obviously, the windows are projecting, which we talked about. And you said you were going to continue to...
Absolutely, yeah, I can't
to
stand
leave
flat
that
windows.
projecting.
Yes.
And I just want to also, in the drawing, I'd like to sign off, or to show the details that you're going to leave the existing front door, the sidebars, the pilasters,
Yep.
the cornices.
Yep.
And also, the other thing we talked about was you felt you would like to continue, which is very grateful for that, the wood downspouts,
the gutters is
the wood gutters,
fine, yeah.
which is also can be commended for that. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And yeah, linseed oil is a pain in the neck. And last but not least, the mullion configuration.
Yes.
We're concerned about the mullion configuration of the old three-quarter cape. What you
Yep.
do for the remaining of the house, that's certainly up to you.
Yep.
But, if you can keep that mullion configuration on the existing house, that would be appropriate. Okay, there's two ways to proceed. We can have a motion, because I believe there's a consensus to approve the application and not a demolition delay. We can do that, because I usually like to ask the question, what's your schedule? I mean, we holding you up, not saying we're doing it, but if we were going to put a demolition delay in 6 months, a year, or what, are we going to hold up the process? I mean,
Yes.
yes. So can I then get some kind of indication from, not ask Bill, I'll ask you, because I trust you more than Bill, that we'll provide in a short period of time, relatively short period of time, some drawings which will define that better, the attachment of the dormer to the new dormer and the attachment to the old house and those details.
I'll
I think
refer to my builder.
Mr. Nixon would like to join us.
The final construction drawings we can have in 5 or 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yeah.
Fine. Okay, we don't need to, I'm giving my own opinion here. I don't think we need to put a demolition delay. Michelle, can I sign them within 6 weeks? Can I sign it off, or you have to have the determination before that?
The determination needs to be out in 14 days, but, I mean, I'm assuming that you could sign the plans.
Okay, so we could do a determination subject to the receipt of those drawings. Is that be acceptable to the rest of the board? Thank you very much. Okay,
Well, Frank, just subject to the receipt of the drawings that confirm what we've heard here.
thank you. Receipt is a lawyer. Receipt of the drawing to confirm what we're agreeing to. Okay,
And Frank?
and that's, I'm sorry.
One thing, I think the owners need to be commended too for the expense and effort they went to move the trees, save the trees on the property and move them around. That's not an easy thing to do, and it's, I think it's very admirable, and thank you for that.
Okay. Having said that, I think we've covered everything. Like, I need a motion, Mr. Vice Chair?
Frank,
Yes, sir.
could we continue this until we have the drawings?
Yes, we can. That's why I asked the question, what would you rather do?
Well, that's, yeah, we'd like to work out some way that we could,
I'm sorry, Bill, I couldn't hear you.
would like to work out some way where we can keep our process moving forward while getting you the information you need.
Well, I'm comfortable, or if you're comfortable, with receipt of the drawing. We have more than once verbal assurances, but do we feel that if the drawings are completely, I'm not looking for consistency, I just would like something to define what it is that is, like if it's 24. But John, is your concern that the dormer's going to be too big and it would be a
Yeah,
showstopper?
I guess I'd like to know how much historic material is going to be lost, and to approve something
I
that I
think-
don't know, I would be hesitant to do that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I think we can provide you with the dimensions of the dormer today. We know the dimensions of the dormer. We just don't have a drawing of it. We can provide you with that information if that would
Good.
be, if that would allow us
Don,
to
would
move
that-
forward.
Would that be,
I would appreciate that.
Okay, great.
okay? All right.
We'll do that today.
All right, fine. And then we'll continue with the receipt of the drawings. So Bob, can you give us a motion? Thank you.
I move the Chatham Historical Commission also find that proposed work to be done dated,
Yeah.
well,
Why don't you date them today, and we'll sign everything, we'll put the date on all the drawings today.
okay, dated December 7th, 2021, will not materially diminish the historic significance of the building, and therefore the commission does not impose a demolition delay.
I'll second.
Okay, the only issue there is we're going to be not subject to, but understanding that we will be receiving drawings within 6 weeks to validate the decisions from today. Okay, I lost my roll call. Any other comments or questions? None? All right. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, roll call. I'll do it this way. Ben?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, so we'll be in touch, and now, Michelle, you have those drawings today for that you just presented? Everything she presented online, we have that. We just got them today.
Remember how we wanted to...
She updated the drawings.
I did not send it to you, and you said I didn't have to correct it all, so I printed and brought it here to them.
Turn on the microphone.
Okay. That's it?
That's it.
So we'll hear from you, or, with the drawings
Should I
when you
email
have them?
those to you, Frank, the details?
sorry.
Should I email the,
The drawings need to go to Michelle.
no, but the dimensions for the dormer today?
Oh,
Who
the
do I send
dimension,
that
yeah,
to?
you can email that to Michelle.
Okay.
Email that to Michelle, she'll share it with us, and then the drawings, again, you'll work with Michelle when we
Yep.
can receive them.
Okay. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much. Good luck. You had your mother and your father here? My son's an attorney, and I went to one of his hearings once, and the judge says, "Who are those people sitting there?" He said, "That's my father and my mother." And the judge says, does they always come? Okay. Somewhere here is my agenda. I'll find it. No, I have a million notes on it, and I just can't find it. There we go. I want to thank everybody for their thoughtful review of that application. It was good. Nothing's easy. Okay. We have a couple of...
Very poorly done.
Yeah, thank you. We have a couple of items that we need to discuss in old business, quite a few items, actually. And why don't I just start beginning and we work our way through it as quickly as possible. The Preservation Awards, fiscal year '22 committee meeting. We had our meeting. We are going to proceed, hopefully, with an award ceremony this year. We are expecting at minimum 3 applications. So I think that's probably sufficient for us to do some kind of abbreviated ceremony. And the committee wants to do it in person, and we're currently thinking of having it at the Atwood in the barn, so keep it simple. So that's where it looked like. And that doesn't preclude if there are other people who have other properties where they think, could qualify. Don, I wanted to ask a question. What do you think about Water Street, Tim Smith's building? Notwithstanding our screw-up.
Which house?
Pardon?
Which house?
The one on Water Street, Tim.
It's not complete.
Not complete?
It's just the exterior is pretty
Okay.
well done, but there's nothing else done.
I think I did ask that question, I'm sorry. Okay, so again, if somebody thinks there's some other one that could be appropriate, please chime in. All right, long story short, next one. Steve, do you have any follow-up conversations? We were going to get
I'm still awaiting a proposal from,
Okay,
I'm still awaiting a firm proposal from Craig to do the Form Es for the cemeteries.
okay.
There's some question about the list of cemeteries, because there are like a single grave cemetery for Dr. Lord. The smallpox cemetery is pretty limited. Certainly, there's the Seaman Cemetery behind the Coast Guard station is very limited. But he's trying to wrap himself around that and get back to me. And if that's the case, and if we get that number, I'd like to submit an application to the CDC for.
Well, that's the next item on the agenda.
If we can do it timely, I understand that we're really running out of time, but if I can do some pro forma application and fill in the blanks before they get a chance to act upon it, I think that's meritorious, because
Well, there was a CPC meeting yesterday, which Steph's going to kind of report on. And the long story short, I think it's January 15th is their deadline. So do you think you can get something with real numbers by January 15th? If not, we go to next year.
I'd prefer not to go to next year, because even if we get approved this year, we don't do it till next year, so, because the money's not available until
All right.
July. So I'm going to shoot for that and do what I can, and Craig's usually generally pretty
Yeah.
good about that.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, so
Would somebody,
Jane,
I
sorry.
have never filed an application with
It's very simple.
CPC. Is there
if you get a proposal from him with a
a number?
thing, you can go online, right, Steph? It's online.
Yes.
Go to community preservation. And it's like a 1 or 2 page application form. The basic thing is to provide some kind of a history of what you're doing, okay?
Right. I'll reach out to somebody if I run into problems.
Right, yes, Don.
Just for the sake of time, I think you want to apply for administrative funds for this as opposed to a historic grant,
Absolutely.
because I don't think a historic grant will fly.
What Mr. Aikman is referring to, does it have anything with the fact that your wife is now chair of the committee?
No,
Mr. Chairman?
He's very true. It's,
Yeah. Mr. Aikman is referring to a process which is developed in the last couple of years where the Community Preservation Committee is interpreting the current bylaw to say unless you're actually physically saving a physical thing, that they can't use the funds. And I don't want to use profanity of what my feeling is about that, but that's nonsense. But, hopefully the members of the CPC in time will change and it'll go back. And in the meantime, they're using this side door of administrative funds. So, we'll apply for historic preservation funds. If they want to use it, let them make that decision, that it's administrative.
I would greatly suggest you not do that, because there's certain percentages that are allowed to each part, and historic has already got quite a few applications. There are no applications for any of the other divisions.
Steph, I don't want to get argumentative about it. I mean, when I looked at the meeting, the Historical Commission, the CPC has $2.1 million sitting there that they could give out. The 10% allocation is the minimum, not the maximum. If the CPC decided, they could give all $2 million to historic preservation, which they've done in the past. So it's not, the 10% is not an issue as far as I'm concerned. It's a question of the quality of the application and the quality of everything else that they got. I agree with that. But, I would say, let's press on, Mr. Burlingame, and then we'll deal with the CPC accordingly. Having said that, it's a good segue into the other CPC applications, which I'm currently involved with. And the first one, you want to share something, guys? No. Okay. Good. The first application that I'm involved in and is the application to CPC for 6.4 thousand, for the application to update the archaeological survey. Now, the actual cost is about $12.8 million of PAL, but I have applied for a Mass Historic Commission grant, which I'm hopefully going to hear tomorrow whether or not they feel my letter of intent is sufficient and they will allow me to submit a proposal. If then we do that, it would still be a CPC grant for half of it. Yes, Don?
Did you say 12 million?
No, I meant 12.2
Oh.
thousand. Yeah, I did say 12 million. I just want to make sure you were paying attention. Okay, so that's the first grant. So that's proceeding, and I hope to do that pretty quickly. The second CPC grant, and Steph, I'm going to write it all out for you so you have it, is a grant to determine the eligibility of the Nickerson Family Association dig, and that's 6.2 thousand. Again, if that's to do the actual work. And Don, in this case, I do agree with you. This probably should be administrative because it's an application. The third one, which is the actual, if it is determined by Mass Historic that the Nickerson Family Association property is a National Register eligible, then we have to provide an application, and that's another one application. So there's 3 applications that are all kind of tied together, and they all don't have to be this year. But Steph, I'll type it all out so you have it, and so it'll be a good year. We'll have 4 applications, Steve, and we'll see whether or not we could get some movement from our new representative. I'm sure she's going to represent us very well.
So far, there are no other applications.
Right.
So we are back this year in time-wise, but there are no other applications.
Great.
Oh, there is a request for quite a bit of money to be put forward to the housing.
Right. Yeah. And I think the Community Preservation Committee made it clear back to the selectmen that the Community Preservation Committee decides how money is spent, not the Board of Selectmen. Unfortunately, it's I was on it, 15 years ago, and Don was on it too. It was always a hassle between the Board of Selectmen and the CPC. but it's the community preservation funds. It's not the Board of Selectmen or Select Board's funds, but we can argue that later. Okay, I'm doing a lot of things to irritate people, so I'll get fired, but it's not working. Okay. Project oversight by individual commission members, Mr. Lear and Mr. Burlingame, you guys were going to put something together?
I can report quickly. We have had a brief exchange of email, and we've met briefly. And those discussions so far are not really going far because we, initially, I think we have a kind of a negative attitude towards it. First of all, it's a building inspector's responsibility that we don't want to get involved in the middle of. And also, there's any number of things about responsibility and who can and who can't and what's adequate and what's not adequate. I think we think it's a decent idea, but the actual process and development of a process is going to be very difficult.
If I may just add to that a little bit, twice in one day I've agreed with what Steve said, but we've developed mostly questions as opposed to suggestions, I think, and some of them, as Steve sort of indicated, fall probably, I think, within the building commissioner, building inspector's jurisdiction. So we need to work out who does what and how can we be helpful as opposed to how would be in the way or repetitive. So I need to have a conversation, or Steve and I need to have a conversation with Jay Briggs to follow up with it.
Thank you. That's what happens, we put two lawyers on something, right? Okay. I hope we would keep it simple, but I'll let the process proceed. We got enough on our plates, but thank you, guys. I appreciate you at least looking into it so we can get ourselves straight. Okay. The adherence to historical commission, or the process and options for fines or other noncompliance with determinations, that is still in the pipeline. When I say it's in the pipeline, I think I shared with you the request from the Katie Donovan, our Director of Community Development, to the town of Chatham and the town manager to request a legal opinion from the town council. So it's somewhere. Michelle, can you kind of ping that a bit and ask where it is? Sure. Okay, thank you very much. So
Does this also include for possibly neglect?
No, separate issue.
Could we put them together?
Well, no, this is strictly the issue of when someone does not, in other words, when we approve something and somebody does something wrong or different, and then the building commissioner at the present time has the ability to fine. And what's coming up here is, do we have the ability as a commission to institute fines? If you go back and read the actual 68, chapter 158, it does actually talk about in procedures, enforcement and remedies. I'll share it again. And there's some wording in here relative to what the building commission and/or the commission shall be authorized to enforce provisions of this chapter. In other words, there is wording that we could enforce it independent of the building commissioner. It's been tradition in the last 15 years or so is that the historical commission has not done that. They have let the building commissioner do it. And I think the question is, wait a second, we have that authority. And, the building commissioner may not agree with what we think we should do. So it needs to be clarified. And that's where we are. And, rather than even discussing it even more, we'll let the town council come out with an opinion one way or the other. Demolition by neglect, Stephanie. Ally was here earlier. Oh, she was, she's back. Ally
good.
Sabatino.
Good.
And she asked two things. She's just getting back in things.
Yeah.
And so she's working on the zoning bylaw to enhance historic preservation, which is ready to be for us. And she promised me before our next meeting on the 21st. Now that she just got back this week, I think, right, Michelle? Yeah. She will provide, detailed documentation on where we are with the historic preservation bylaw, what the schedule is for us to review it, have a public hearing, and submit it to the planning board for submission to the May town meeting. She thinks we have enough time. As soon as that happens, then she's going to get together with you and work on the demolition, the neglect.
Great, thank you.
Okay? So that kills two birds with one stone. All right, moving right along. We're going to make it before 12 o'clock. Nothing new on the boathouse. As I said the last time, the owners are trying to make repairs to the boathouse to button it up for the winter. And again, that doesn't come back to Chatham earliest to 2023, because the foundation has to be put into the new upweller. I have a call into Mass Historic Commission finding out where we are relative to approval of the South Chatham Village National Register designation. The last conversation I had with them about 3 or 4 months ago, they said they were working on it, and they'll get back to me. So I'm going to make a call sometime this week to find out where they are. We have no correspondence, Michelle? Okay. Status of demolition delays, any changes that we need to know about, Michelle?
I don't believe so. I think it's the same as last time. I just update you on. I'm sorry. I just updated you on whether or not there were any permits in the pipeline, as you say, but I don't believe there are any changes other than
Okay, so nothing new on the status of delays.
that. No.
It's funny hearing that tapping on the window. Okay. We had no administrative review applications, okay? 68 Shell Drive, hoorah, okay? Finally, it's going to happen, and reading a letter to the editor by somebody who remained nameless, that they weren't happy about it, and, I think we've been around this long enough, and I know Don has, that, you take your wins, you're not going to get 100%, and the fact that, 90% of that house is going to remain, right at the site, and the exterior restored to what it was, as close to what it was, I think was pretty good. The other element of that on 68 Shell Drive is that the Nickerson Family Association, by the way, they will have a CPC application, and they want, I'm not sure, $25,000 to flake the barn, store it, and then finish the engineering and install the barn at the Nickerson family. So that's coming.
I was guessing that was going to happen.
Yeah. You would what? I'm sorry?
I was guessing that was going to happen.
Yes. So that's good. Well, by the way, let me go back a bit. I talked about how I want to submit an application to the CPC to determine the eligibility of the Nickerson family dig as a national register. The Nickerson Family Association has committed a donation of $500 toward that $6,000. So, I was hoping they add another zero to that, but they didn't. But we, at least we'll be able to go to CPC that, yes, there are other people who are going to submit, because I know the question usually is, Stephanie, don't you have your own money? And anyway, so I won't go there. Okay, so there we are with 68 Shell Drive, and we'll see where we go next. Monomoy Theater, nothing new is happening. The only thing I want to add wasn't on the agenda per se, but just I know I did get an action from members of the commission on the Eldridge Garage, what they're doing, and I attended the HBDC meeting, I forget when, and they had the same questions. I think, the issue of the donation of money, they were said, well, that's fine, but they didn't want that donated to determine what would go on the property. And I know I'm paraphrasing here, but I did have the strong sense that the majority of the members of the HBDC wanted to keep the original design, and not change it significantly. So they basically rejected the design, that was proposed, that, I think you, Steve, had said, what are they doing here? And so they want to keep it simple, maybe we don't need grand bathrooms and everything like that. And so that was positive. So we'll stay tuned, and the town's going to be doing something. Yes, Don?
Didn't I understand that the HPDC was leaning towards demolishing the existing and rebuilding it as a new building?
There was it could have been a consensus, I don't know if it was, Don, but there was some of the members felt that when they do open it up, if it's too difficult to restore it, that, they would apt to let it be demolished and a replica be put in its place. Yeah, but it was like, we're not sure, they were going to look at that, it's like we do with everything else, we open up the building, my goodness, you can't save this. So it'll be a decision that's to be made. But at least we have a commitment that the design would be the same. Okay. Just quickly, I know I asked everybody just one more time, including Jane, if you are going to be taking any time off in the early part of next year, please let us know as soon as possible. The other element, CPC had one other thing here. No, I think we covered it. That's it. Anybody else have anything they want to add or discuss? Yes, Don?
I would like to ask that the applications be dated. There's no date on any of the demolition applications, and I think there should be a dateline on it.
Yes. Michelle, what I'd like to suggest is a date stamp.
I do date stamp the original, but the
date you receive, there was a question here, like what Bob said, what's the date of the drawings? And I said, well,
Yeah,
use today's date.
well, typically I try to make sure there are dates on the drawings, but this one got a little complicated, as you know.
Oh.
And I missed it, so I apologize for that.
No.
But, well, actually, there is a date on one of them, you
What
just
if we,
can't
what
read
if
it.
we date it? What if we date, received community development?
We can, and I do generally on the originals.
Oh.
All the 14 packets that are
gotcha.
delivered. I don't stamp every packet, but I
Yeah.
can. Or I can revise
That's a lot of work.
I
No,
can
no.
revise the application to add a date line and just be more diligent about making sure that there are dates on all the plans I receive.
Maybe we should tell them a date and we give them, like, for instance, with all due respect, well, Mr. Nixon's not here, so I can talk about him. To defend those drawings we got, I think is ridiculous. Maybe we ought to also talk about the size. 8.5 by 11 is not acceptable.
That was discussed, and.
Pardon?
That was discussed with the applicant, so,
Well,
like I
Michelle,
said,
we can reject the application. Do we feel strongly that, I'm going to pick it up again, that an 8.5 by 11 drawing is not sufficient? I mean, this is,
My comment is it depends.
I'm sorry?
My comment is it depends. There are some house designers who submit wonderful applications on small paper. And then there are others, if they did it on 28 by 36, still wouldn't be any good. So I guess you understand me.
But what if we set a minimum of, of
12 by 18 or so.
11 by, whatever the size is, a minimum size, of drawings?
Steve, I think how I interpret what he says, if, as our applicant today did, revise the drawings from Mr. Hart to put one side of the building on a sheet of paper instead of four buildings on one paper, then that's fine. So it does depend on what the drawing is of. Steve, is that reasonable interpretation of what you?
Yeah, it is, and I think the designer himself, some people know what to do, and some people take a whack at it.
Okay.
And I think that if the design had included a few little extra things, we'd be all right on it, that size.
Right, of course, yes. Well, the question,
Frank,
I'm sorry?
Frank, this is Jane.
Oh, John.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Bob also referred to this, and that is, it's very helpful to have the drawing of the existing building next to the proposal.
Yes.
Whenever possible. And that can be put on any size paper.
I would agree with you, but let's think about this a second, guys. When somebody is coming before the commission to make a change, you know, the cost of creating as-is drawings can be significant, okay? Now, just let me say, it's a significant cost to hire an architect to go ahead and draw what you have. Now, a larger architect, like Ahern or something like that, you know, these guys, it's very expensive, but to the average person who comes before the commission and has a house to do an as-is, you know, of a drawing I think it's a burden, and I would agree. Yes, Janet?
I agree with you, Frank. I think, and the impression I got today was that a couple of times when they were asked questions, they wanted to see what we were going to allow and approve before they went further with more detail. Didn't she say that twice?
Did she? Yeah. I missed that. Well, you know, there's a certain validity in that. Yeah. And that, because we're reviewing concepts, guys, okay? So I don't know how to play this, you know, your wish is my command, or our command to insist on as-is drawings. Let me went before. You know, what we have done is we insisted on photographs of the existing. That's how we got around it. So if you have a photograph of the existing, technically you could put it against what was being proposed. Sorry, Steve.
I'm not against rejecting applications that have inadequate drawings. I think, like today, we went out of our way to, well, it's probably okay, and it looks like they've done a reasonably good job, but they certainly haven't let us make a decision, a good decision, or a clear decision. I think it's kind of like, okay, it's 90% okay, so
Okay.
I vote yes. But I think that if we're going to be looking at it, you got a building that's probably 1780 to 1810, and they're adding a dormer to it, and we have no idea what the dormer is going to look like or where it's going to be. I think we're not doing our job properly.
Well, I think, I hear what you're saying. Let me propose a way to proceed with this. It's 12 o'clock. Let me have a conversation with Ms. Katie Donovan, okay, our Director of Community Development. And the conversation is, to what extent can we, through Michelle, reject an application? And Michelle is, you know, you talk to some people and she thinks she's hard as nails. You talk to other people and they say she's such a nice person. So, you know, so it varies depending upon the applicant. And trust me, there's a lot. We're going to have to buy a bulletproof vest, you know, sometimes, you know, with some of the applicants. So let me have this conversation with Katie relative to what the criteria is. Michelle, am I stepping on your toes here?
You know, your application calls out the fact that they can provide photos. Again, some applications are more difficult than others to get what we need. So if the consensus of the commission is that, I've gotten to a point a couple of times where I've just said, okay, let's just take it to the commission and see how it goes.
You see, unfortunately, take it to the commission means we're now in a legal situation.
Well, but there's always continuance.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing we could do is set up another group to review applications, you know, and I don't know, you know. Let me talk to Katie and see what she says and what we can do in terms of the other boards, how they deal with it, you know.
One thing I have found, it makes a big difference on who the main advisor is to the project.
Yeah, right. Okay, I think anything else? Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Go move.
Second?
Second.
Second by Steve. Roll call, Bob?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Steph?
Aye.
Jane?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Janet? And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, baby.